Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and today I'm reviewing Wild Gardens from Rose Gauntlet. Wild Gardens is a 1 to 4 player foraging game where players are going to be moving around the board, gathering various ingredients, turning those into recipes, serving those recipes to the various guests, and doing so more efficiently than the other players before the end of the game. I've actually been meaning to review this one for a while, but I wanted to play through more of the solo scenarios to get a feel for how those played out, which I have now had the opportunity to do so, which is good because, in case you missed it, there's an active crowdfunding campaign for a reprint of this game, as well as the expansion. I'm just reviewing the base game over here, so none of the expansion content, no prototype here. This is just me reviewing a game and getting a review out to you before the crowdfunding campaign ends, so you can get my thoughts and opinions around the experience. I'll also note, I do have a full solo playthrough on the channel. You can go ahead and check that out. I played the first solo game a while ago when I first got this, and only started recently diving into more of them, as well as having played it multiplayer as well. But to that end, I am going to keep the rules a little bit light over here as I give you a general reminder of how to play the game, and then dive into my thoughts and opinions. And I kind of covered the basic idea already. You're gathering ingredients, making recipes, serving them to players. The way you do that is going to be a bit more in detail. You're going to have 6 rounds of play, and in those 6 rounds, you're going to be dividing it up into 2 main phases, 3 rounds and then 3 rounds again, each at a new location. You have this giant deck of location cards, and halfway through the game, you'll set it up for a new location, resetting the various tokens on the board. These are tokens that you'll be moving around, as well as having different bonus actions over here. Generally, your turn is going to consist of taking one of your tokens over here and placing it into one of the 3 spots and taking the associated action. I usually like to start with this one because this is how you build up your tableau. You'll move your forager that many spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you can follow various arrow paths and looping around as you need. This board is double-sided as well, giving you different pathways to try to figure out, and then take the associated action. There are 5 different actions over here. The main forage action, this action over here, is where you're going to gather ingredients from the spots around where your person is, and you can do that twice because you've got 2 of these hand symbols. Then we have this action over here, which is how you cook or recipes or serve them to guests. If you have the requisite tokens, you can cook a recipe from the supply, trading those tokens in, gathering that recipe, and then getting the points for it as well. Or alternatively, you can serve it to guests. Both these actions, by the way, need to be taken while at a serving station over there. But you can serve them to guests as well, and that end, each guest is going to require certain types of recipes they want. So for example, you can see over here, Walter wants that type of recipe, which you can see on this cattail pollen pasta. Walter the dog has very refined tastes. Then when you serve them, you'll get points, but you also get an ability, either an endgame ability, in-game ability, something happens right away as you play. Different abilities will be on the various guests. That's going to be these 2 actions, making recipes and serving guests. And over here, you have the opportunity to reserve recipes while gaining points. Alternatively, my favorite action in the game is building out your tableau. You see, you have these tokens over here, which you can gather these tokens, place them onto various spots on your board, which is going to build up your tableau, allowing you to do much more than what the core action allows. If you build up a bunch of actions, if you have 3 different actions over here and you take a action, you can both gather 2, but you can also take all the actions of the action tokens you require. But you do have to work your way towards specific areas. There's a whole aspect of how the books have to match certain areas, and then you have to go ahead and return ingredients to return those books, meaning you can't just take these willy-nilly. You do have to work your way towards them, but you can build up a powerful tableau where you're doing significantly more on each turn than the game intends. At the end of you placing out your 5 actions, you're going to take one of your actions, placing it onto the board, and taking the associated bonus of one of these spots, which reduces the number of actions going to the next round, which means you have 5 actions, then 4, then 3, although again, if you are taking this action, you will be getting more powerful as the game goes on. When you move to a new location, you'll take all your tokens back, so you'll once again go through another phase of 5, then 4, then 3, as you try to go ahead and figure out the best combination of getting all those ingredients, getting those recipes, serving those guests, and trying to get as many points as possible in the game. So slightly more than the intro, but that's the general idea of what's going on. There's a few more things to touch upon, but that should give you a general overview of how the game operates. There's also a robust solo mode over here. I believe there are 7 scenarios, if I'm not mistaken. I have not played through all 7 of them. I've played through like 3 or 4 of them, but they basically are going to have you going through the same general arc of the game, but this time around there's going to be small rules differences or various things. You're going to have certain guests you're trying to serve, a story that you're going through along the way. So it's the same general arc, but with a bit more of a story and often some small minor rule refinements along the way. Little mini games or things that are slightly different while maintaining the core feel of the experience. To that end, as far as what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking about the game, I will start off with the production over here, which I don't for every game, but when a game looks this beautiful, in general, Rose Gauntlet Entertainment, their games look very premium. The tokens, this is the wooden upgrade pack, do keep that in mind, but the tokens are very premium. The general production, the art, all of that really pulls you into the theme of the game, and this is a very theme-strong game as far as the general foraging theme and the beautiful aesthetic to go along with it. as usual, looks are not enough. And so as far as the gameplay goes, you are building up a tableau which makes you feel more powerful as you go. I like any game that lets you feel like you're doing more, and while there is a reduction in the number of actions each turn, so the trade-off of getting to do more but then getting to do less, you also have that reset halfway through and you start off at full power, but with all these actions, which really lets you feel very powerful as the game evolves, letting you do a lot more. When you enter that second half of the game, you are doing so much more as you go. The movement puzzle of the board has you trying to figure out your sequence of I need to go 3 spaces, then 2, then I'll loop around, I'll get this power, I'll trade them in. So there is a decent amount of planning as you try to figure out where you're going on this board and how you adapt to the various foraging tokens and where they're going. And so the combination of trying to plan around those tokens, the movement on the board, the fact that you're working on that tableau building as you go, the decreasing actions that have you doing more but also managing less, the various guest abilities, all these guests have abilities that are going to be mindful as far as endgame scoring, discard abilities, things that happen when you serve them. You have a large variety of different abilities, and the fact that you also have to choose which one of these to give up every round to get an ability on that, as well as the fact that each location has it at the beginning of each day ability, giving you more resources, means there's a lot you're trying to plan around in a game that is fairly simple as far as the core idea of what you're doing and the core actions you're taking. There's like 3 main action spots divided up into 5 core actions. It's very straightforward, but everything else kind of adds to giving you a lot of layered decisions as you play through it. As far as what I don't like in the game, I do think that outside of these action tokens, the core loop of the game does feel fairly samey game to game. There's a lot of things you are juggling in terms of what you try to pursue, which action tokens come out, which guests to serve. There is a lot to juggle, but the core idea of what you're doing, I think the game does outstay its welcome a little bit in each individual session, and that's true for sure as you play through multiple games. It doesn't feel very different as you play through it. The core structure is you're trying to figure out your pathway, gather the various tokens, foraging those ingredients, trading them in. This is contract fulfillment at its core, with tableau building and a small movement puzzle to round it out, but I don't think that gives you a ton of variety to the experience. So overall it's a good game, but it's not a ton of variety to the way the game feels as you play it, and I do think each individual session outstays its welcome a little bit. It runs a little long. On the one hand, I like how powerful you can feel with a full reset halfway through and you get to do a ton of stuff. On the other hand, that does mean that as you go into the second half, you have your tableau mostly built out, which means you get longer and longer turns as you can get to do more and more, which both feels fun from a how cool my turn is, but less fun as far as how long the game goes on when you have a bunch of people doing it and it feels like it might go one round too long, which is a rare complaint for me. Usually I want to do more in games. This is one of those times where the game almost gives you a little bit too much freedom by the time you hit the end of it. At least it does if you are going for that tableau building aspect, which would be another small critique, very small critique, because I like this part. But in general, this game I do feel if you aren't immediately starting off by building out your tableau, I do think you'll be entering the second half of the game at a very strong disadvantage. Usually the tighter a game is, the more leeway there is to pursuing immediate benefits versus long-term benefits, but when a game is slightly longer, as this one can be, you kind of need to get your tableau up and running to maximize how much you're able to do as you play. As far as I can see, others not liking, the mid-game setup when you switch areas is a small little inconvenience. It takes like 3 minutes, so it's not a huge deal, but you are going to be rearranging these tokens, which can kind of feel a little bit like mid-game setup. Additionally, you are restricted by movement, which is something I like in the game, where you are trying to puzzle exactly where to go. I like that puzzle trying to plan 2 or 3 turns in advance as you go through it, and always, of course, keeping that 1 to 4 available until the last minute, because you will need it, although sometimes you have to trade in early. But I like that movement restriction puzzle. That's part of the charm of it, but it might make you feel a little tighter in a game that on the surface is light, but there is a lot more thinkiness going on to it as you play. As far as final thoughts on Wild Gardens, there's an S at the end. Wild Gardens is absolutely beautiful. It's very charming. It gives you a unique theme, that foraging theme. Again, its core is contract fulfillment, but the way it implements it into the foraging theme, they do a good job of it. Ultimately, the game is very enjoyable, very straightforward, but it is a little repetitive as you go through it. I do think the solo mode is almost where the game shines. The solo mode gives you small tweaks of the experience, allowing you to experience that core gameplay loop, but with fun little rule adjustments along the way, little mini games, things that keep the experience a bit more exciting while you go through that core gameplay experience. So for me, I've actually had more fun exploring the solo mode than going through it again on a repeated basis in multiplayer instead. Overall, I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5. A good game, definitely some beautiful things as far as production and as far as just the general experience, but also, again, a little samey game to game. As far as other game recommendations, definitely check out Parks and Istanbul. These are two different games that both also have a degree of contract fulfillment while juggling movement in different ways. I think both those do a little bit more as far. Parks is actually a little bit more straightforward, similar to this one, but very elegant as far as how the game plays. Istanbul definitely mixes it up a bit more with the various locations you're going through, but if you like that core idea of that contract fulfillment, great production, as well as the simple movement puzzle you're trying to balance, all three of these games definitely manage to hit those notes. In any case, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you found this review helpful, and as always, I hope you have a good one.